This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask with your host, Dr. Judith Briles, on the Rockstar Radio Network. On the show today, you'll find out where book publishing is going and how to take advantage of it. How to identify and avoid publishing predators. What opportunities are emerging as the book trade evolves in new forms. How to avoid losing money, and much, much more. Join us now as a variety of publishing pros will deliver insights and strategies to take the author to the next level of publishing. It's your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. Brought to you by Author You and the Book Shepherd on the Rockstar Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, fabulous day to all of you. It's clearly this is first in the fall time, and we know when the weather is out and fall is coming into play, and everything is going fabulously well. And one of the great things about fall time, and especially in September, is authors and their books seem to get refocused and they get back to business and back to work. And with us today is going to be one of my favorite people who has got so many incredible ideas on how you can take your book and literally, as he says, slice and dice it and leverage it and all your other written content and really get it back out there. It's a little tweak here and a little tweak there. So Jeff Davidson he'll tell you he doesn't like to write, but has he written, 59 mainstream books published by all the biggies. He's had them translated into foreign works over 140 times. He's actually personally ghostwritten 32 books for others. He's got in excess of 250 ebooks. He's published over 3,400 articles, and he himself has created 24 iPhone apps, which I want to talk to him about doing, and another 72 audios. So, does Jeff Davidson know what he's talking about? Does he know how to slice and dice? Does he know how to commercialize? Does he know how to monetize? Does he know how to market? Does he know how to leverage your intellectual property? You bet he does. And he's going to be with us this entire hour. He's the CEO of breathingspace.com. You can go on YouTube and look at a series of videos with him, connect with him on LinkedIn. And certainly, if you want to find out what the laundry list of his books, just go to the breathingspace.com and click on his book list, and you'll find out all the goodies. So, Jeff, welcome back to our program. I'm so glad you're here because this is one of my favorite topics. I've always said that books breed more books or products or things or widgets or gadgets or gizmos and everything else. And it's always amazing to me that few authors really realize what the vast field they have at their fingertips. I mean, has that been your experience when you first talk with them?
Yes, it's so true. You write a book and you go on to the next project, the next book, whatever happens to be, not realizing that you've left all kinds of opportunities sitting on the table with the first book because you didn't look into it just a tad more.
And that's it, or they come to a dead spill. So here's what, dear listeners, you can come up with. If you have a book that has long legs on it, or maybe it's got stumpy legs on it and it's just getting started, or maybe it's got really tired and it's feeling limpy, this hour is for you, because we're going to be going through a series of methods and strategies and even share some successful distribution strategies that Jeff's come across with his years of experience that will really take your book into the next level. So, Jeff, where do we want to start today?
The first and most obvious way to slice and dice up your book is to look at each chapter and assess it for its ability to stand alone. Mm-hmm. So if you've written a 16-chapter book, and I'm talking here about nonfiction, but we could talk about fiction in a little while. If you've written a 16-chapter nonfiction book, and let's say it's a self-help, a how-to, some kind of instructional guide, and the chapters don't necessarily build upon each other. In other words, 4 isn't dependent on 3 and 16 isn't dependent on 15. If the chapters can stand alone, then each of those chapters could be a major article. And you could strip away all references that take a person away from the material. You wouldn't say, now in the next chapter we'll cover blank, blank, blank. When you're converting the chapters to articles, you remove all such verbiage so that when you're through, the chapter converted to article now completely stands alone. It's self-contained. If somebody comes across that particular article and never encounters your book, they will gain value because the article in and of itself is a complete unit of thought or material. And of course, you can make reference to your book within the article. You can also make reference to your book in the byline or tagline to the article. For example, Judith Briles is author of XYZ. And so by making articles out of chapters, you get the chance to get the information in your book out there into the stream of consciousness once again.
So you redo that. What about the idea, Jeff? Because I've seen people, especially with lengthy ones, that they'll take, if they can really truly stand alone, and this is more likely in nonfiction than fiction, but they just turn that into a full-blown ebook. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great idea if it's a standalone product and it offers value, because you have to remember the person who goes online seeking an ebook, a shorter ebook, has a particular issue in mind. And if your chapter, now converted to an article or a standalone ebook, answers the question, or provides the formula, offers, the 6 steps, whatever it happens to be, then that person is more than willing to pay X amount of dollars to gain that information. Time is money, and while somebody could perhaps go hopping all over the internet trying to round up the answers, very often if they can get it in one convenient, concise format, i.e. your ebook, they're more than willing to go ahead and buy it. So I think it's a wonderful idea.
And do you have any thoughts on price range for those kind of things? I mean,
Absolutely.
for those standalone chapters, what can we get away with?
Well, let's start. Let's take our hypothetical 16-chapter book.
Okay.
200 pages. So roughly speaking, each chapter is 25 pages.
All right.
25 pages in, let's say, a comfortable layout, not packed, might be 300 words, could be more than 300 words, but let's just use 300 words as an average. Maybe there are illustrations, maybe there are bullet points. So 25 pages of 300 words roughly would be what? A 7,500 word article. All right? Mm-hmm. That would be rather large. That would be big. In that
big article.
Case, it would make an excellent ebook if, of course, it's focused on a particular topic that people want, and it might come out to 25, 30 pages, depending on how you lay it out. It might be less, it might be more. You might have some exhibits or stuff about yourself in the back. But the point is, it would be a significant size for a breakout ebook. Now, when you place your ebooks on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles or some of the other places, let's start with Amazon. They want you to price it at least $2.99. At $2.99 and up, you get a 70% royalty. If it's under that price, then they give you far less of a royalty. The reason for that is they want to bring the floor up for all ebooks. So if you price your book at $3, which might be too low depending on how good your material is, for each sale you can look for $2.10. But suppose you are a subject matter expert and it's a rather defined area, and when people come looking for your ebooks, they don't have a world of options, then you could get away with $4, $5, $6. I've seen people go to $8, $9, even $10 for an ebook, depending on what the information is, how exclusive it is, how it's packaged. And, of course, covers are very important. People sometimes will buy a book contrary to the wisdom we've learned for our whole lives. People do judge books by their covers. They certainly judge ebooks by their covers.
Yes, they do. They do. And for our listeners, you need to understand that if you have, on your regular book, if you have a lot of little print or whatever on that subtitle, if there's one, this doesn't work in ebook land. It's really bold. You need to have a thumbnail that snags them right away.
That's right. So you could get away with $6 to $8,
mm-hmm.
And depending again on how the chapters interrelate, in the back of your ebook, you could then have a hyperlink which takes people to an offer to your other ebooks. So talk about slice and dice. We're now stacking up the products we've sliced and diced and say, okay, here's another opportunity to get one of the other ebooks in this series. You can call your 16 chapters a series. Maybe only 8 or 10 of the 16 chapters truly fit into an article or ebook format, truly fit into the series you're devising. It's still a wonderful way to gain extra sales for the material you've already essentially developed.
Perfect. And I have to tell you, I wrote down great big letters across because I happen to have a book called Stop Stabbing Yourself in the Back. And I always said it was the Cliff Notes. It's the self-help of Cliff Notes. There are 21 separate chapters. Each one exclusively stands alone. And I'm going to get off my tush. And I think 18 of them are really solid, long enough ebooks that I just have to create the covers for them and run with them.
There you go. Now,
so, there you go.
If you decide to go the article route, that can be a very good way to promote your book, because if you take an article or two from the book, in other words, a converted chapter,
mm-hmm.
and you get it published in some type of magazine or a blog or someplace where people are willing to invest the time and read for a couple minutes, sit there and read. They get wrapped up in the material, and then there's an offer at the end of the article that says how to get the whole book. Then you've created a nice PR piece for your book without doing a whole lot of extra work. Let me also say that in our example of a 16-chapter book that goes on for 200 pages, if you have many, many chapters that are long, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 words, by all means, cut them up into 4 and 5 articles.
Okay, you know what? I missed a cue, but we'll be right back with Jeff and more about how to slice and dice and monetize that book.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Is there a book in you or another? Author U will show you how to create, develop, and publish your book without being hoodwinked. If you already have a book out, you'll find a supportive and brainstorming community that's connected and creative no matter where you live. Author U brings in national experts for its book camps and annual author extravaganza held each May. It has regular meetings and delivers webinars for its members on timely topics. Through Author U's extensive network, members enjoy exclusive benefits, including significant discounts for a variety of services necessary to publishing. The Resource, its online book publishing news magazine, is content-heavy and it's free. If you want to create a book that has pizzazz, punch, and panache, Author U is for you. If you're a hobbyist or a casual author, it's not. Join Author U today through its website at authoru.org. Follow Author U on Twitter at Author U and on Facebook at Author U, where timely author and publishing tips and articles are posted daily. Author U, where the author goes to become seriously successful.
Change the way you publish online. WaveCloud is a new form for authors to manage all their books' information in one place from start to finish, including pricing and listing summary. To learn more or sign up for email updates, visit wavecloud.com.
Every picture tells a story. And it's a truism that people do judge a book by its cover. Nick Sellinger and NZ Graphics have been in the business of producing superior graphic cover design and interior layout for self-published authors, independent and traditional publishers for years. He has developed a reputation for excellent work, fast turnarounds, and best of all, affordable pricing. NZ Graphics also produces ebooks and book marketing materials such as posters, sell sheets, postcards, bookmarks, business cards, logos, and more. Books designed for his clients have won multiple book awards, including Best Book Award by U.S. Book News, multiple Evie Awards from the Colorado Independent Publishers Association, Indie Book Awards, the San Francisco Book Festival Award, and Freedom Medal Award from Valley Forge. Visit www.nzgraphics.com or call 303-985-4174 for more details about making your book the success it should be. Mention that you are an FOJ, friend of Judith's, and that you heard about NZ Graphics on your guide to book publishing.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so we are really deep into ebook land right now with expert Jeff Davidson from breathingspace.com. And as we quickly exited out, because I wasn't paying attention to the cue, so I apologize to everyone, but that we were going through a couple of variables, and I asked Jeff, and I said, wait a minute, don't answer, we need to come back on the air, is that what books has he converted of his many books, of his 59 mainstream books? What books has he done converted into ebook land or altered them? And his response was what?
What books haven't I done?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So why don't you tell us, Jeff, what tweakings that you do, whether it's an opening, closing, cover, back, and let's get them a little bit so they can start thinking along that way of how much work is it to do the conversion?
It's not much work for me because I have high school and college students do it, but here's what I have them do. They first, of course, take the chapter. They read it again for proofreading, for any dated references, for any references outside the material. We get rid of in the next chapter. We get rid of references to who's the president or what, some event that went on that might have been cited. So we generalize the material so it becomes what's called an evergreen. Then we do create a new cover for the series, completely different from the original book. Why? Because the typical person who comes across the ebook may never go on to discover the book, but if they do, they want to see that it is somewhat different. Not that difficult to create covers. You can get any art major in high school or college that will do it for $10 an hour. It's not a big deal. Increasingly, I have been reading that creating back covers for the ebook, or at least the last page, because there really isn't a literal cover. Most of these are bought and purchased as an online electronic file as opposed to a hard copy ebook. But I've been reading that the back covers do help. And so most of mine don't have back covers, but in the future they will. In terms of what happens internally, of course, you have a separate ISBN number for each of your ebooks. If you go to my identifiers, Boker.com website, and you're going to order new or blank ISBN numbers, don't get 1, don't get 10, don't even get 100. plunk down a lot of money and get 1,000. I don't know what the current price is, but if you're an author of several books, you're going to run out of ISBN numbers in a hurry if you only get 100. You really need to get 1,000. Now, if you're only written one book or only plan on writing one or two or possibly 3 books, you might be able to get by in this lifetime with 100 ISBNs, but anything beyond that, you really need 1,000, and it pays to buy them in one lump sum, even though it's a chunk of change, because it'll last you for a long, long time. Now, in terms of other internal tweaking and things, not too much. Make the print a little larger than it was in the original book. If it was 10 or 12, go to 14-point size or 13. Make the margins a little wider. So if you used to have 1 inch around the material, maybe it's 1.25. People don't mind if your ebook has larger print and goes on for more pages, especially if it's an electronic book where they're not physically obtaining any material, they're reading on the screen, and it's actually easier reading the larger the point size. Some people are big believers in doing nice typeset with 2 columns and all that stuff. I don't really think it's necessary. It does look good. It could give you the opportunity to raise your price, but I think when people want your material, they really want your material. And some of the gurus in the industry in ebook sales say that it should look a little homespun. It should look a little folksy. People want to know that they're getting inside info that hasn't been mass distributed around the world. There's this aura about having the ebook look like it's something that, is hard to get, exclusive, never was put into final edition. Here's the copy we were able to sneak out of the country, and now it's in your hands. That kind of presentation. I don't know if all that's...
I have to ask you this. So are you telling me to create it like in a Word document and just drop it in at a 13 to a 14-point font
Most of the ebook places today that you can, Amazon and others, they have their own format you're going to have to follow. They have a series of clicks you make, and you enter various data, and then you enter the material. Mm-hmm. There's .mobi, and there's other formats. That is important. That is not important. What is important is that you have your material ready in your word processing file, and then when it's time to enter it into the format required by the online vendor, you have that opportunity, capability. In my case, as I say, I've never done it myself. I just use, kids from the neighborhood. Everything's been fine. Now, I want to point out something else that is important in terms of slicing and dicing. We've discussed articles and ebooks, but it's ultra important to recognize that when you create these independent articles or ebooks from your book, removing all external references, you also have now made, or at least you're 95% of the way to making a script for a CD, for a podcast, mm-hmm. for an MP3 file. Mm-hmm. And these days, you can buy very good recording equipment. You can buy a very good microphone, a pop-P filter, and everything you need that plugs into your computer for under $150. So you could literally be sitting at your desk using your converted chapters, which are now articles or ebooks, and turn them into scripts. If you're good at presenting the material so that it doesn't sound like you're reading, because nobody wants to hear written material, then you could literally create 1 CD a day for the next 16 days and have a whole album, a CD album, 16 CD album that could sell for $89.95. So here's a whole nother opportunity.
Wow. Well, it's certainly the whole electronic area has so morphed for what we can do. I mean, I'm fascinated. You've got the kids in the neighborhood doing this, so it's bare bones cost. I agree with you. I'm one of those people that I initially bought, when people were buying one, I bought 100, and now I'm saying I should have gotten 1,000 of those bloody things, the ISBNs. So we have to go back to the path again.
They go fast. The ISBNs go fast. Mm-hmm. Now, staying on the audio route for a moment, let me say this. A typical person speaks at about 100 to 120 words a minute. Mm-hmm. So if you were working with a 3,000-word chapter or 3,000 words that were boiled down from a larger chapter, you boiled it down to its essence that represents what you're going to say on audio, those 3,000 words are going to take you roughly 25 to 30 minutes, which is exactly the listening time, the preferred listening time of commuters, people who pop CDs into their car, or people who download podcasts onto their mobile devices. Nightingale Conant did a study years ago that said that showed that the average commute time was 23 minutes. Now with more traffic and more congestion, it's probably up to 25 or 30 minutes. So when you're making a 25-minute audio from your 3,000-word chapter, that just happens to align perfectly with listeners' needs.
Well, that's perfect. So we have about a minute and a half till our bottom of the hour break. But so you're saying 25 minutes down from the 50-minute CDs. So just go into, or segments, however you do that, and run it that way. Ideal. And then I have a question. You mentioned the ISBNs. I've always put ISBNs on everything. I know that Amazon does not require them, but iBooks does. Do you see that changing at all?
I would put them on everything. Amazon has their own code, an ASIN. Right. Uh-huh. However, Amazon is not the only vendor in the world, and when you place products on Amazon, it's hardly ever exclusive unless you happen to have an Amazon author contract with them. So you may wish to place on Barnes & Nobles and a variety of other vendors. So you want the opportunity to do this easily and quickly, and that's what the ISBN does for you.
Okay, so I'm a believer. You're with the choir here, but I think that you should label it and claim it as your own, and whether Amazon goes with it, that's another issue. So we've got tons of ideas just on the morphing of ebooks from your book. So we have a book that goes into an ebook, but then we have the book by chapter, when appropriate, that goes into another ebook that has a whole brand spanking new cover. And on ebook land, that when we come back, I want Jeff to explain. I mean, the back cover I'm intrigued with. How do they see the back cover? Is they going to have a feature on that? I'm Judith Briles. You're listening to Your Guide to Book Publishing. My guest is Jeff Davidson, and we're talking about slicing and dicing your book to greater and bigger things. We'll be right back.
This is Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Since 1987, Color House Graphics has set the standard for quality book production. Whether you decide to print a small quantity of books or need a large print run, depend on Color House to help you. You'll receive professional help and advice the moment you reach one of our representatives. If you mention hearing about us on Your Guide to Book Publishing with Judith Briles, we will provide you a discount on the first order you place. To speak with a project manager, call us toll-free at 800-454-1916 or visit us at www.colorhousegraphics.com.
Do you need postcards that make a statement? How about business cards, flyers, brochures, or NCR forms? Tuvets is the solution for all your printing needs. Providing services specially designed for authors, we deliver exceptional quality colored printing. Most important of all, we specialize in reducing your printing costs. No more waiting. No more standing in lines at your local printer. Online proofing. With our Pricing Tools calculator, you can get instant quotes on all your printing products, as well as shipping rates all over the United States. Just a few clicks of the mouse and you're on the way to discovering how easy and convenient online color printing should be. Contact our friendly, human account representatives. We recognize that you want answers, not voice prompts. Visit our website at www.tu-vets.com or call 1-800-894-8977.
When Ned Thompson and Harry Shore started Thompson Shore in 1972, they believed employees with great character would make up the best company. They were right. They hired people who were not only experts in bookmaking, but who were obsessed with quality and delivering exceptional customer service. Almost 40 years later, Thompson Shore remains a 100% employee-owned company. Ned and Harry knew that successful customer projects are a direct result of empowered employees. We specialize in all books for large and small publishers. Creating beautiful and well-made books, we're dedicated to pleasing our customers by making the experience a good one from start to finish. The personal touch we have with our customers allows us to be innovative in solving their most difficult challenges. Our platform also ensures that we can remain flexible to meet our customers' unique needs and expectations. Our marketing kit can create buzz for your title, enhancing the promotion of your book during infancy. When you need to test the market to gauge your future sales, we can provide digitally printed books that will transition seamlessly into a larger offset run. From ebook to hard copy to delivery, our skillful customer service teams are at the ready to answer your most pressing question. At Thompson Shore, we know that making the highest quality books requires more than just best technologies. It requires superior customer service, professionalism to the trade, and commitment to environmental and social values. With these standards of excellence in place, you can be sure that we will always help you put your best book forward.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. Coming up, you'll hear more about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
All right, so here we are at the bottom of the hour, and we've halfway through. Jeff has just given us a ton of information as we put this all together. So usually we have our sponsor on at the time. Phil Knight will be with us, and our producer Wayne will get him. So I wanted Jeff to share before Phil comes on that there's just something we were talking about off the air, dealing with rights, getting things back, and how you can control those. Some of those parameters of dealing with electronic rights versus just print rights, and putting some strings attached so that you as the author can have some input on that. So Jeff, do you want to go over a couple of those points?
Well, very briefly, depending on how your book contract was written, if you're working with an external publisher, in other words, you're not the publisher, if you've handed away electronic rights, then theoretically the book never goes out of print, and so you're out of luck. If you have electronic rights expire, or you have a clause that says that the electronic rights that publisher has shall not inhibit in any way your ability to come out with a new edition, then you're ready to get running again, and all is fine. In every case, what you want to do is try to limit the length of time a publisher can have any kind of rights to your book, print, electronic, whatever. Most publishers today will not offer just a straight print contract. They will try to get as much in terms of electronic rights as they can. There is no standard contract when it comes to electronic rights. There are so many ways to divvy up the rights. You really have to have somebody who knows what they're doing and is creative and is innovative and retains for you what you need to retain. But the long and short is, for purposes of this show, is when you create a product that has a new title, is aimed at a slightly different market, has at least 20% new material, then that actually qualifies for a new copyright. That actually is considered a new property. So no one ever has to be stuck because of some contract they wrote years ago and a publisher who's unrelenting.
So any type of change, any change at all, they're slapping a new copyright on that, and then it's basically a new deal, and they don't have those.
New cover, new title, aimed at a slightly different market with at least 20% new material. If you have a 300-page book, that means 60 of the pages have new material.
All right, so it's just not a quite update of a couple of things. It is that 20% alteration.
Well, yeah, what you described is a revised edition.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's hop over to Phil real quick, and then we'll come back and we'll continue on some ideas to slice and dice and take our property and leverage it into a whole nother stratosphere. Phil Knight is with Color House Graphics. They're one of my favorite printers, and in fact, they're doing a reprint of one of my books right now as we speak. Right, Phil?
We sure are, Judith.
So what's new in Printland?
Well, today, and first of all, thanks for having me back with you this evening.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I'd like to mention today, and I've been thinking about what self-publishing is about, and a good part of it is about learning and understanding the processes that are involved.
Mm-hmm.
What I'd like to just cover is, very briefly, a few of the more common mistakes that I see folks make when they come out and look for a printer, and then when they begin to work with that printer, what kind of mistakes do I most commonly see? And one of the things in the very beginning is really choosing the wrong printer in the first place, which in part is, the fact that they don't really do a careful enough job of evaluating what that printer's capabilities are.
Mm-hmm.
So not all printers are the same. They each have their specialties. And while they may be called book manufacturers, they don't do everything as well as they do other things. The other thing I'd like to mention is that the buyer oftentimes, I find, doesn't really take the time to talk to their printer. And at times when they do, they don't want to admit that they don't understand what the printer is saying. And by that I mean there are terms that we use that aren't easily understood. Be sure, if you're buying print, that you understand what is meant by different binding styles, trim sizes. Most printers will take the time to let you understand what they mean and what these terms represent. And lastly, I find that we have buyers that aren't specifying the right materials to meet the needs of their book. And by that, it may be the paper, the cover treatments, things that just are mismatched to the type of product that they're trying to put out in the market. Again, ask your printer for advice and understand what they mean when they talk about different treatments and different options for papers. So with that, Judith, if you have any questions for me, I will cover more of these things in future discussions.
Perfect. I think what's important, Phil, here is what you're saying is, when in doubt, ask questions. And if you don't understand it, get clarity on it. And I know I can just share with our listeners that you and I actually did a change on a cover after we made on my cover on a couple of embellishments that I had that we decided on this fifth printing we really need to do. And it saved us, close to $800?
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. Ask questions. Your print. Here's the good news is there's less than 40 really full book production printers in North America. I mean, what is the number now, Phil?
Gosh, I think it's really down to about 15 to 20.
Oh, ugh. Okay, so we have got just some really a couple of handfuls of really true professionals that have been in the business for a gazillion years. And I know, Phil, you've been doing printing and book production for how many years now?
36.
36. So he knows the ins and outs, and that's what I love about Color House Graphics and a lot of the other printers that I'm privileged to have the opportunity to work with our clients, and that you want to work with people who really have ideas who can look at your book or look at your cover idea and actually make suggestions on what might be more appropriate that you haven't even thought of. So take advantage of them. Phil Knight, Color House Graphics, colorhousegraphics.com. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Judith. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Jeff, back to you. Let's talk about some other things here that we've gotten into that you've talked about leveraging our intellectual property the first go around. So what other suggestions would we have to go back and maybe revisit the party again? Maybe change it again and again. How many times can we do this?
When you say revisit the party, what are you referring to?
Well, I think it could be that if you were to let's say you've done it once. Like I'm going to take my book, Stop Stabbing Yourself in the Back. There's about 18 chapters I think I can do standalone. Or you take one of your books and you've done it. So what prevents you, or should you, or why not come back and now relook at that material again and adjust that 20% and come up with a whole new thing? How many times do you come back to the trough?
I can't say you would do it more than once based on what you've laid out, but rather than create a new book and a new copyright, there's a lot more slicing and dicing to do of your existing material, regardless of what kind of contract you have with your publisher. In many instances, there are a variety of products and information services you can keep producing that won't conflict in any way, won't conflict with the terms of your contract, won't conflict with the spirit of the contract. If you're a self-publisher, then of course you have carte blanche. We haven't even touched the surface here. For example, what can be a CD script or an audio script can also be a video script. A little more work because you have to discuss scenes and camera angles and all that stuff, but if you have a hankering to create video products, and these days with flip videos and others that can fit in your hand, a palm top video that shoots high definition pictures, you can create video much more easily than you might presume. Now, in some books, depending on the nature of the book and what kind of information is offered to readers, a single chart has value that should be sliced and diced from the book. In other words, some people sell a single chart or a single exhibit or a graph or a photo. It's not for everyone, but it could happen. Some people create posters from slogans within the book, specialized post-it pads, mugs, notebooks, all the other things that you can put a slogan onto, a T-shirt, a baseball cap, and so on. Some people find that creating what's called a one-sheet or a fact sheet or a monograph or a white paper or an executive memo is
Jeff,
helpful for reaching their client.
All right, hold that thought, and we're going to come back to that, and we're going to get into just those variations in our last segment. This is Judith Briles, your guide to book publishing.
This is your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr. Judith Briles. And we'll be right back with more great information right after these on the Rockstar Radio Network.
Writing and reading are moving to the cloud. WaveCloud represents a whole new community for writers and readers to connect, communicate, evaluate, and share. Writers hone their craft and build their business. Readers build their favorites. Sign up for updates at wavecloud.com.
The book shepherding concept is simple. The publishing world is changing, and so must you. You need an experienced shepherd and a guide to partner with you as you create, strategize, develop, publish, and achieve your publishing goals. You can't do it alone without paying the price. You can spend your money creating a book that turns out to be so-so, or you can create a book that looks and feels classy, builds your brand, and is a financial success, a bestseller. It's your choice. You choose. You need the book shepherd. Publishing is riddled with obstacles, sometimes nightmares for the author. You don't need problems. You want solutions. Dr. Judith Briles will shepherd you through the maze and the chaos. At times, she's had to step in and rescue a book that has been sabotaged by a publisher or by a publishing service provider or sometimes even the author themselves. Judith Briles is the book shepherd if you want to create a book with no regrets. Give her a call today, 303-885-2207. That's 303-885-2207, or email her at judith@briles.com. By the way, Briles is spelled B-R-I-L-E-S. Follow Judith on Twitter at MyBookShepherd and on Facebook at the Book Shepherd.
At Total Printing Systems, customer service is our priority. We are located in Southern Illinois. Our employees have an average of 18 years experience and know that customer relationships are important to our continued success. We have been a short-run book printer for nearly 40 years and always stay at the forefront of technology. Our niche is from 1 to 5,000 copies. Today, we offer digital, black and white, and 4-color high-speed inkjet printing, a cost-effective way to introduce color into your short-run titles. We, of course, offer traditional offset printing as well. Bindery is done in-house, from adhesive case binding to PUR perfect binding to mechanical binding of all types, including side sewing. We provide warehousing, kitting, distribution, inventory management, a new print-on-demand facility, streaming browser-based ebooks, and bookstore. Call us at 1-800-465-5200 for a quote on your next book project. You can also visit our website at www.tps1.com.
Welcome back to your guide to book publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask on the Rockstar Radio Network. If you want to write and publish a book, if you want to be successful as an author, your guide to book publishing, everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask, is for you. Stay tuned and you'll hear about statistics, scenarios, and strategies on what to do now to get you published. So let's get back to the show. And here again is your host, Dr. Judith Briles.
Well, what I love about having guests like Jeff Davidson is I learn stuff myself, and that's always a good thing. I think that all of us should keep stretching and products. And what Jeff is really starting to branch into is a lot of the derivatives that can happen. And he was just, and we went to fade out there, but he was just starting to talk about calendars a little bit and some of the other things that you can do with your book to leverage your intellectual property. So, Jeff, I'm going to toss it back to you so we can maximize this last segment. What is it, and how do we do it, and what are the costs involved?
In terms of creating calendars?
Or any of the type of derivatives that you'll be running through, from the quote sheets to the posters.
Okay, well, clearly monographs, fact sheets, one sheets, executive summaries, white papers, there's no cost. You're simply sitting there, and on your computer you're taking your material in one format and working it up so that it is now available in another format. So there's no real cost. Mm-hmm. If you have excellent photos, if you have excellent phrases, and you want to create a poster, you can go to one of the office superstores today. You can go to some of the FedEx, Kinko stores and other stores like that have that capability. You can't print poster-sized material based on the equipment that you generally have in your own office, but you can certainly find vendors who can assist you in that respect. The prices can vary from $3, $4, $5 per sheet to much more, depending on whether it's color or laminated or not, and so on, and whether it's on a backing. Posters in general are for people who either have a tremendous distribution channel off and online, because it is a business in and of itself, or speak frequently to groups and offer it as a back of the room adjunct to their books and audios and videos and so forth. So posters aren't really for everybody. But software, for example, that's derivative from your book is much easier to handle and distribute, because obviously putting a software program on a single CD, or for that matter a DVD, depending on how complex the material is relatively easy. Most computers can handle it. You can print your own labels right where you happen to be. You can, on a CD, of course, get up to 740 megabytes of data or material. On a DVD, you can get 4.7 gigabytes, and there are even DVDs now that are double density that give you up to 9 gigabytes of material, so you can get a whale of a lot. Also, with the development of the Apple iPad book and other such products coming down the line, books are now going multi-dimensional, where you might have the essence of each chapter available as a click-on button across the top of your iBook screen. And for readers who just want to get the essence, that's a wonderful way to go. In our example of a 16-page book, you could have 16 click-on buttons across the top of the page. Each button, when clicked, gives them the executive summary or 2 or 3 pages of the material that represents the essence in the chapter. The reader can then make a decision about going deep into the chapter, reading the entire 20, 25 pages, whatever it happens to be, and because it's an iBook format, you can now have hyperlinks to material within the chapter that gives you, the reader, the opportunity to hear sound, see pictures, see video, link to someplace else, and so on. So the world is going to explode in terms of what readers can do with their existing material. Software in general, depending on, say you wrote a book on, psychological testing and personnel testing, and you give people the opportunity to take a 20 or 30 question test. This represents a wonderful adjunct to your existing book because you might be able to sell your book for $14.95 or $18.95, but if it's shrink wrapped with a disc of some kind that represents added value, all of a sudden you can go to $24.95 or $29 or $34.95. So when you bundle your derivative products with the original book itself, you're able to charge a lot more, and people are a lot happier if they want to have, the whole system that you put in, which represents very little work on your part from the standpoint, if you have a 200-page book and there's at least 2 wonderful observations per page, that would mean you have 400 of them. Take the best 365 or combine 35 with the other 365, and you have a one-a-day calendar where each day of the year there's a phrase, observation, witticism, quote, or pithy saying from your book. People like that. That can be sold as an electronic product. It can also be sold as a hard copy product if you speak to groups and have it in the back of the room. You could also approach calendar manufacturers, although that's a little harder because they have lots of people approaching them all the time. But, Andrews McMeel and a lot of these other major publishers do have a very healthy section in their catalogs of calendars derived from books. One-a-day calendars, wall calendars, and so forth. Some of them also have posters. So there's really no end in terms of what you can do based on the material in your book. It's just limited, really, to your own creativity, your own energy, the resources you can muster, the ways you can get the product out the door into the hands of the target market. Let me just refer to the young kids that I work with. I don't round them up willy-nilly. There are many ways to advertise for help today. Craigslist is familiar to everybody. There are other job sites and other posting places where you can, within a 2, 3, 4, 5 mile radius of wherever you happen to live, and I don't care if it's Montana, there is talent within a radius of where you live. There are people who can accomplish for you what would take you a long time to perfect on your own. And in my opinion, it always pays to bring in this talent at a relatively low price per hour because I make a very high price per hour. And so the trade-off is always favorable to me. I don't care what they cost. The time that they save me and the results that we get is always worth it. I joyfully write checks to these people because I know how much time and energy they've saved me. And let's take the area of copyright, for example. You may have a book And from that book, you create a speech or a series of speeches or CDs or a CD album. And you want to trademark the phrase that you use that is the title for your CD album. You can't trademark a book title, but you can trademark a CD series or a presentation, a live presentation series. I own 11 trademarks, and I've never filed a trademark on my own. I've had college students do it 100% of the time, most of whom had no knowledge of how to do this prior to sitting down at the trademark website. They read the instructions, they figured it out, and they did it.
And they saved, and you saved. Not only you paid them to do it for minimal rates, but you just paid the filing costs, and you saved at least $1,000 by doing that, at least.
Yeah, there are lawyers out there and trademark specialists who will charge a lot. I mean, they're worth it if you have the money and you want to get, the full 9 yards. But for most of us, most of the time, do-it-yourself when it comes to trademark works just fine. So all the materials we've discussed in this program that you can slice and dice from your book, once they become derivative products from your book, may well be subject to trademark, and that's a way to protect them. I'm a big believer in that. As years go by, you can sell your trademarks. As years go by, you can sell your intellectual property. There's nothing that says after you're through with a book and you've gotten all the rights back from the publisher, or if you're a self-publisher, they're obviously your rights from the get-go, that you can take all of your intellectual material and sell it in one lump sum to someone else who will now update it for today's market with new terms, new title, new everything.
And take it and run with it. All right, Jeff, we have 30 seconds left. One final tip.
One final tip?
Final tip.
Stop looking at your book as a one-shot proposition. You wrote a book for the leverage that you can derive from it. There are a lot of other things we can be doing in life to make money in a hurry. If we write a book, which is often long and arduous, we want to make sure we get maximum benefit, maximum earnings from the hard work we've already done, and slicing and dicing will do that for you.
All right, and with that, we are at the end of our hour. Fabulous information. I highly recommend you all go back and re-listen to it because there were so many nuggets. Thanks to Jeff Davidson. He's going to be back with us in several weeks, and we are going to be looking at foreign rights, how to do it, and how to really maximize and monetize it there. I'm Judith Briles. You're listening to Your Guide to Book Publishing.
Thank you for being a part of Your Guide to Book Publishing. Everything you want to know but didn't know what to ask. With your host, Dr.